And in the case of Jimothy, I haven't seen an animal that has short spine syndrome before. It's definitely on the rare side. It takes a mom and a dad that are both carriers for this genetic defect to produce an offspring that has it. So I haven't seen an animal that has this before, but I certainly wouldn't. I would love to have the opportunity to see Jimothy. Hi, my name's Julian Avery. I'm an associate research professor of wildlife conservation at Penn State. So Jimothy's this really, in my opinion, cute raccoon that people are seeing in a Seattle neighborhood that has what we call short spine syndrome. This is a very rare, typically genetic defect that occurs during development that leads to a shortened body. Everything else appears to normally be developed in this individual, but it has a spine that is either compressed or fused in ways that make the total animal shorter, including the tail. This is what I would consider a relatively typical looking adult raccoon that's from our collection, and interestingly enough, this one was collected in 1988 from Center County, and so we use this for teaching and research purposes. But this is what an animal that does not have short spine syndrome would look like, and you can see that if the legs were down and the tail was out, the body would go from about here to here. Jimothy, it looks like some of the vertebrae in the neck are either compressed or fused, and some of the ones in the back or somewhere in the middle are compressed. And so Jimothy probably has a dimension that probably stops about here, but otherwise the legs and all the mobility looks about the same. So I think Jimothy has really caught people's attention because he looks really unique. Many folks probably haven't seen a raccoon in the wild. Everybody is familiar with a raccoon, or an animal that we oftentimes call a trash panda. But Jimothy looks so unusual in that the body is shortened in such a way that people initially are thinking, what is this animal? I mean, it's clearly, once you look at some of the fur patterns and other traits of this animal, you realize it's a raccoon, but it looks so different that at first people think, what is this creature? And in fact, the woman that saw it first and posted online and created some of the earlier online viral videos was asking the question to her audience, what is this creature, right? I'm always on the side of the fence that people should view wildlife as often as possible, go places where you can see animals. In this case with Jimothy, I would think that there's probably going to be a lot of interest. It certainly doesn't hurt to go to the neighborhood where Jimothy's found and try and view Jimothy at a distance. But we don't want to start doing things that either stress Jimothy or force Jimothy to behave in ways that might put the animal at risk. And we also don't want to do things that might make Jimothy less wary, right? So a lot of people, when they see animals that look different or look like they might need some help, a lot of people have the urge to feed them. This has a lot of oftentimes unintended consequences for the animal that leads to worse welfare. They might become less wary, they may be more likely to get hit by a vehicle, they might actually come into contact with people's pets. There's all sorts of reasons why a hands-off approach and trying to view safely at a distance is really best in this case. Unfortunately or unfortunately, we have urban wildlife. I'm grateful that we have animals that are general enough in their diet and their behavior that they can do a nice job and they can survive in an area like this. When we leave refuse or other things like pet food on porches, we create a situation where we're subsidizing animals. We allow them to persist in urban areas. And some species are general enough in their behavior or lack specialization in such a way that they can take advantage of things that we leave in our environment. And in the case of raccoons and possums and skunks, right, a lot of them are very able to take advantage of the trash that we leave behind, dumpsters, other things that might be growing in our yards, and they do really well in urban areas. But Jimothy has clearly survived long enough to be successful in an urban setting. And oftentimes we think, should we help these animals? They seem to be at a disadvantage. But typically I'm always on the side of the fence that we should keep a hands-off approach, let nature run its course. And in this case, if you allow Jimothy to be overly successful and find another mate that has a carrier of this genetic anomaly, you could actually lead to more individuals in the population looking this way and maybe struggling in similar ways. And so we oftentimes try and think about what are the benefits for the population, either at the local level or the whole species level, and doing things that either give an advantage or prolong sort of some selective elements taking effect on the population are usually things that we try and avoid doing. The interesting thing with this syndrome, this genetic defect, is that the body becomes compressed, either because not enough vertebra formed or the vertebra became bony after they had grown and kind of squished together and become compressed. So Jimothy may have either compressed vertebra or vertebra that are fused together. And what that really means is that he might have she or he might have fewer ribs. But what happens inside is that the lungs and other organs inside are going to be normal. And so oftentimes these animals have a very barrel-chested look. The morphology sort of adapts to try and wrap around with what it has, the internal organs. The skull and the brain case are going to be all normal. It just might be that the neck is shortened. So Jimothy clearly is normal in many ways, and from the way I see Jimothy moving around in the video clips, seems to be able to do a pretty good job of surviving in that environment. I love when wildlife captures people's attention. I don't think enough people are aware of the things that live around us. My hope is that an animal like Jimothy gets people to add raccoons into their reality and spend more time looking for them, or see what else they can go find in nature that looks really cool. The more people get hooked on this, and the more people realize, though, there's other things that are just as cute as Jimothy, maybe naturally so or unnaturally so, the better. And so, people should get out and flip more logs and look for those weird organisms under there. Oftentimes, when I'm leading class, I might find frogs or salamanders that have an extra leg, and those sorts of things capture people and encourage people to dive in and look deeper into what's around them.